Hello everybody and welcome back to Memory Gamma. Today we're going to continue with our rankings and we are going to move on to the Romulans. Now I'm going to just sort of get into it. Anyone who's watched the previous two will know the way this works. Every single ship that the Romulans have, generic ship, is on this list. I have gone all the different versions of said ship, so if a ship has multiple different slot loads out, these are all on here because they all add or subtract something from the power of the ship. Again, as always, the fact that there's 19 things on here, the 19th ship is not a ship you should never use. It's not a terrible ship. It just means that looking at all of these in terms of stat line, abilities, in terms of maneuvers and action bars and upgrade slots, it means these are either the least maneuverable, the least powerful, the least customizable, or the least useful in wide situations. There will be some missions and some places where the lower ranked ships there will be brilliant. There'll be some games where you will want the top ranked ship, or you'll want to go for something in the middle depending on the requirements. And of course, this is just on the base ship. This is nothing to do with upgrades. There are certain ships which have particular upgrades which make them vastly more powerful than they were at the base. There are some upgrades that are unique to particular classes of ships. I'm not looking at these here. This is just, if you take this hull, where does it stand in relation to all the rest of them? So, as always, we're going to start at the bottom and we're going to work our way up. If you do have any particular opinions, again, drop them in the comments, but let's go. So our first ship is the Romulan Scout Vessel. Now, there are several different Romulan Scout Vessels. This one has, 1 attack dice, but it's not exactly a combat ship. 3 defense, which is nice. 2 hull, 1 shield, so very flimsy. Yes, it can cloak and sensor echo. Maneuver dial is nice. However, the upgrade bar is tech slot, and that's it. Now, it is a lot cheaper. It's not actually 14 points. I believe they are now 9 points for a generic scout vessel. But you do have to have a carrier ship. So you do have to have a ship of hull 4 or more to be able to bring a scout vessel. It does get scan on the action bar, which is nice. Romulans do not have an awful lot of ships which get scan on the action bar, since they tend to have an evade, a target lock, cloak and sensor echo. So it's nice to have a ship with native scan. And the maneuver dial is really nice. 6 green maneuvers, it can go 4 straight. 2 come about as a white. It gets white hard turns at 1, and 2. So maneuverable, tick. Scan, tick. 3 durability, 1 dice, and only a single slot, which is a tech slot. Not brilliant. Obviously, you can use this to carry cloak mines or something else like that as a one-shot gank, but then that's an awful lot of stuff you're putting into one ship, and it doesn't do anything once it's used its ability. So, the next ship, the Romulan Scout Vessel, the other version. This one comes with a weapon slot. Now, this one is 1 point higher because if you're going for just the pure faction, Romulan weapons, almost all of them, in fact I think all of them, are fixed dice. Unlike other factions like the Federation or the Klingons, who have a lot of weapons that are based on the primary weapon value of the ship, the Romulan weapons are all fixed dice because their ships are usually very low power in terms of dice. So giving this weapon slot gives us a really nice kick in the tail, because you can throw on a set of disruptor beams or torpedoes for 5 dice, and it does come with target lock. So this changes out the scan for target lock, and with the weapon slot, that means it makes sense. You can make this is a 9-point ship. You can put 3-point torpedoes on here and make this a 12-point, torpedo boat. That's quite powerful. But I think just given the fact that it gains target lock and has a weapon slot instead, this is a little bit better because it has more uses in terms of a combat ship. Our next ship is the other Romulan Scout Vessel. This one comes with a scan token. Now, I've put the scan token one above the target lock one because scan is a better action overall than target lock. Target lock obviously is just for getting either rerolls with your dice or for firing a weapon card. Since you will only have either one dice or the dice you require for a weapon card, that makes the scout vessel with that target lock, it's good. I think the scan token is more useful. It can be used offensively and defensively, and obviously, you know, it's down to personal preference. 17 and 18 could very well be swapped entirely depending on your preference. I put them this way around, so I think scan's just a little bit better than target lock. Romulan Science Vessel. Now, the Science Vessel is the non-fighting version of the Scout Vessel. So this one comes with exactly the same maneuver dial, same stat line, but it doesn't lose a defense dice. But it comes with a crew slot, and that's why I think it's better. So far, it's the first crew slot we've seen on the small ships. And crew, not just for the Federation, but for the Romulans and for most other factions, crew is the big thing. There is a lot of very cool abilities, a lot of very cool stuff you can do with crew, and a crew slot's probably the most useful slot because you can fit any useful crew you want into it. The next science vessel is exactly the same, only it comes with a crew and a tech slot. And of course, the science vessels are now only 6 points, so it's a really, really cheap way of getting a crew member on board. Getting a crew. It could be someone useful for a friend, it could be someone you want to send over somewhere, it could be a one-shot ganking card. But this science vessel is better than that science vessel on the sole purpose of its identical ship, only it's going to tech slots. It does lose scan. So again, these two might be interchangeable if you think scan is better than having a tech slot. I've gone for the tech slot. Having two different slots on this ship while still at 6 points, it makes up for the fact you haven't got scan. But yeah, so again, everything so far from 19 all the way up to 15 could very much be interchangeable depending on how you're on your particular play style. Right, the first proper warship we have, 14, the NX era Romulan Bird of Prey. Now this comes in here. It comes above the lower vessels because it's an actual warship. So 2 attack dice, 3 points of hull, so it can fly on its own. Weapon tech, evade target lock. No cloak, no sensor echo, no battle stations, no scan. So the action bar is very much to be desired, but it can go through 3 hard turns. It gets the red come about as standard as you might imagine. Still only has a forward 90, like all the other science and scout vessels so far. But it's their first proper war ship, you know. So it's the the first ship that doesn't require another ship to bring along. Our next ship is the original series Romulan Bird of Prey, so the generic of the Galgathong. Now this one, double crew weapon, nice slot loadout. Sad it's not got a tech slot. A shield, which means it's gained cloak. But apart from that, it's identical to the NX era one. So it's one up because it gains a shield and the ability to cloak and sensor echo, which is what the Romulans are big on. And also a pair of crew slots, which is never bad. Our next one is the other version of the generic Romulan Bird of Prey, but this one comes with a crew, a weapon, and a tech. So it's the most customizable of the two of the smaller ships, but apart from that, it's exactly the same. And the maneuver dial is nice. It's quite maneuverable. It's got the ability to set cloak and sensor echo. 2 defense dice plus the cloaking means it's probably not going to die one shot. Only 2 attack dice, but it's got weapon slots to counter that. Still only got a 90 forward arc. This is a thing with a pattern with the Romulans. In fact, only 2 ships break that. The Romulan D7 is next in the 11th slot. Now, this is on here because, well, you know, 3 attack dice, so slightly better attack dice value. Only 1 defense dice because it's a Klingon hull design, but that means it gets 6 green maneuvers, so it's much more maneuverable at the slow speeds. Crew in a weapon slot is nice. Tech slot would have been nicer, but the bonus attack dice and the extra green maneuvers, plus the fact also that it's a bit cheaper than the generic Birds of Prey, I think puts the D7 above the Bird of Prey. This is the one that you could do a swarm fleet of. You could totally do a swarm fleet of the generic Birds of Prey as well. These have not been recosted yet. All three of the ships, the Rateg, the Galgathong, and the Vortavor, were all normal retail releases, and it has not been re-released since. Whereas the D7 class came out, this is the animated faction pack, which gave us the Talon. So it's come out at 11 points, which is cheaper than the 16 points of this. So at the moment, that's how it stands. The Val d'Or. Now, this is where people might go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Why is the Val d'Or class so low? Okay, couple of things. 6 hull, a huge beefy ship. Only 2 shields, doesn't matter really, you're going to be cloaked pretty much the whole time. 4 attack dice is nice, 2 defense dice, 6 green maneuvers, nice. It gets the 3 hard turns of red and a come about, which is nice, but again, for being the Romulans and maneuverable, it sucks that they're 3 hard turns of red as well. And also double crew weapon. So combine that also with the fact that there's no tech slot and no rear firing arc. Means that it's sometimes difficult to keep this thing where the enemy, where it's going to be able to shoot the enemy. Obviously upgrades help, but this is just done on the base ship. Then we're going to go with the Dideridex. So this is the first of the Dideridex classes that you may have seen. So going in close, this one has, same sort of thing as the Val d'Or. It's got an extra shield. You're not usually worried about that. You're probably cloaked. 3 attack dice, but that's what weapon slots are for. No come about, but it does have white hard turns at 3. And a reverse gear. A reverse gear is a nice move. Double crew, double weapon. So, possibilities, lots of possibilities. It's quite a good, solid ship. Quite customizable, quite, solid, durable. Sort of the Romulan version of an Excelsior. And 2 defense dice. For even a huge ship, 2 defense dice is pretty nice. Our next ship. Another generic Dideridex. This one, again, at this point here where you see multiples of the same ship class, it's simply the upgrade bar. This one swaps out weapon slot for a tech slot. It's just fundamentally better. Because it means you've got you've got ability to put all 3 types of upgrades down without having to put other things on board. But also it gives you a more rounded ship. Also, all Dideridexes are now 25 points rather than 28, so it's a nice point to be using. Our next one. Yes. The Scorpion class attack fighters. Now, some people will say they're not very good. Okay, they are probably the weakest of the 3 fighter squadrons. This is true. They've got the slowest maneuver dial in terms of the most red maneuvers. They have the least number of attack dice, being on the name ship having 4, and then everything else going lower. However, they are still a fighter squadron, and fighter squadrons are fundamentally very, very powerful. These also have the ability to have additional upgrades, unique to the Romulan, to the Scorpion class. Again, looking just at this, you will not do badly if you bring attack fighters of any ilk. So that's why they've come quite high up. Again, even if it was just on that, 4 attack squadrons, meaning you have to hit 4 separate attacks to kill this thing, unless you bring special anti-fighter weaponry. So just the fact that it's a fighter makes it more powerful. Our next ship, another Dideridex class. This one's gone for double weapon crew tech. Now this is a bit better than the other one for the simple expedient of there are powerful and more useful Romulan weapon upgrades. So giving it 2 different weapons allows you to put on, say for example, a really powerful 90 forward and a 360 weapon, giving you the ability to do both sorts of firing. Again, 2 weapon slots gives you options for what you bring. Tech slot is still good. Our next ship, another Tederadex class. This one, however, double tech. Now, there are some very nice Romulan tech, and tech upgrades are things that can make or break a ship, especially when it comes to maneuverability. Again, I don't want to go too much into cards, but for example, interface generator, Romulan cloaking device, advanced cloaking, plasma coil overdrive, all of these things, tech upgrades, relatively cheap and very powerful, can fit on, and you can just fit more of them on with 2 base slots. Our next ship is the other Valdor class. It's much, much higher. For the simple expedient, it gets a tech slot. Again, it doesn't seem like much swapping out a crew slot for a tech slot, but crew weapon tech is just a much better slot loadout. Now this does, of course, you may notice, obviously this leapfrogs an awful lot of places from the other Valdor, but the fact is that, again, it's also done on what I see used. I see people running Tederadexes, a variety. I do not see people running generic Valdors. I see people running the named Valdors, the Suran, the Vrax, the Valdor itself, the Soterus. The generic Tederadex does come out occasionally, and people generally want the ones with tech slots because it gives them the ability to put on some of the Romulan cool cloaking tech. Right. Anybody that knows the Romulans will know that there are only a couple of things left. Yes, the Romulan drone ship. This might be an NX era ship. However, 3 attack. Very nice. For a small ship. 3 defense. That's amazing. 3 hull, 2 shields. Okay, not bad. Double tech weapon slot. No crew slots on this. Okay, that can be rectified. But what's also really nice is, okay, not sensor echo, scan on the action bar. Very nice. Evade, target lock. And not a red maneuver on the board. 2 different speeds that come about, 2 and 3, plus 6 green maneuvers and hard turns 2 and 3. Can't go speed 4, so it will be outsped, but it is one of the best sort of all-round hulls that I've seen. Obviously, most people use the named drone ship, prototype 1 and 2, because they're named abilities, but this is brilliant. Another point, it's one of only 2 Romulan ships to get a rear firing arc. So it can really make use of that weapon slot. Now, there is only one Romulan ship that is still to put on this board. Anyone that went into this video knowing anything about the Romulans and didn't know this was going to be at the top, then, you know, aspirational ideas, I'm sure, but we knew it was going to be number 1. It pains me to say this because I'm not actually a massive fan of this ship, but objectively there's only one answer. This is the Romulan Warbird, the generic of the Scimitar. And again, it's a massive power hike. You get 6 attack dice. You keep the 2 defense dice. You've got a combined durability of 10 even when you're not cloaked. You've got up to 6 straight forwards. You've got a 4 come about as your only red maneuver. Double weapon crew tech allows you to put anything you like on this thing, and it's got a rear firing arc. It's just an absolutely amazing base ship. And of course, everyone can know number 1 is, of course, the other version of the Romulan Warbird that's got double tech. Double tech, weapon crew, 32 points for 6 attack dice. You don't even need to cloak this thing. This thing will fly around, and with, I said, a forward 90 and a rear 90, double tech, 6 attack dice, and a come about maneuver. This thing is a beast to fight, even uncloaked, non-upgraded. You know, you could happily put down that Romulan Warbird against any other generic ship in the Klingons or the Federation, and I guarantee the Romulan Warbird would win. You don't have to put any upgrades on board. You can ignore all the slots and just go on sheer stats and movement, and it will outmaneuver everything the Federation have got and Klingons, and it will outgun everything. Or say 6 attack dice. That's more than the Negvar at 5 and the Sovereign at 5. So it's the most powerful ship of the 3 factions. And at combined 10 durability, it's horrendous. When it's cloaked, 6 defense dice and 7 hull. So again, you're not one-shotting this thing. Probably not even two-shotting this thing. So, As I said, I'm not an enormous fan of the Romulan Warbird, but that's partly because I've seen an awful lot of people play, and whenever an event on the Fremont comes out, if someone plays Romulans, they've almost certainly bought a Romulan Warbird. And the Romulan Warbird is just something you have to know that it's going to turn up. It's one of those cards, whether it be the generic or the named scimitar, that it is a card that you will have to get to know how to fight or avoid, because you will encounter it at some point. It is a brilliant ship, I'm not denying that. It's an amazing ship, and it's an absolute beast to both fly and to fight, and that's why it comes in number 1 slot. So, zooming out and leveling in. So, here is the rankings of the Romulan fleet. As I said, if you have your own views about where you think everything should go, feel free, drop a comment in. If you think the Romulan Warbird is overpowered or overrated and should be lower, I can see your point of view. If you think that the scout and science vessels, for their maneuverability or for their sheer cheapness, should be higher, again, I could see that. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for listening. Again, if you've got any ideas, any responses, anything you want me to do next, drop it in the comments. I will read them all, and I will do everything I can to try and do what you've asked. If you haven't already, please go to my page and join the Fremont Reformation. We do events throughout the year, and also we are constantly looking for new players, new ideas, new scenarios. Also, if you haven't already, if you want to have a look, also there are several other channels on there where you can have a look at other people's ideas for ranking videos and fleet building ideas. But otherwise, drop a like, drop a comment. Everything's very, very appreciated. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.